Hello and welcome to our review of the Norwegian Dawn.
So we're currently on a 10-day cruise on the Norwegian Dawn. So we started this cruise in Southampton in the United Kingdom, and in the end of the cruise we will get off in Oslo, Norway.
So we're doing a Northern European cruise. So for some of you who are wondering why we are on a Norwegian ship after our last review that was less than idyllic of the Norwegian Encore, why are we on another Norwegian cruise?
Well, to be honest with you, we came on this cruise for two reasons. Number one was we really liked the itinerary. It was great that it started in the United Kingdom because we were visiting friends in Scotland prior to the cruise, so it was easy to get on the ship. It went through quite a lot of places that we were interested in going to. We could have gone to Paris, Berlin, Hamburg, Amsterdam, Copenhagen in Denmark, Aarhus, the second largest city in Denmark, and of course ending up in Oslo was also great. The other reason we chose this cruise is it actually really fit economically with this leg of the long-term journey that we're on. This cruise ended up costing us less than $100 per person per night, which it's really hard to manage that in Europe anywhere that you stay if you include your hotel, all of your meals, and a little bit of entertainment.
All right, so let's get to the review. What did we think of the Norwegian Dawn? Now, before we get to the review, we want to let you know the Norwegian Dawn is perhaps a little bit older of a ship.
And launched in 2001.
2001. It has been refurbished since then, but it's an older ship and it's a smaller ship.
Yeah, we're about 2,200 people at max capacity on this ship.
So that gives you a frame of reference for what we thought of the ship, and we will then get into the details. So in compared to, say, some of the larger fleets or more modern fleets, that's what we're looking at on this particular line.
So let's start off a little bit talking about service. The difference between this ship and, say, a larger ship in Norwegian's fleet, the Encore that we traveled on before, that ship had over twice the number of passengers that we have on this one, and they had not that much different a level of staffing. This ship, I believe, has somewhere around 1,000 staff on it for, just over 2,000 guests. Whereas when we went on the other ship, I believe it had about 1,700 staff for over 4,000 guests. So that's quite a difference in terms of ratio of staffing. And I think you do feel that when you're on a cruise. Everybody doesn't seem to be quite as rushed in terms of the service on the ship. They don't seem to be quite as spread thin as we felt on the other ship. It just seemed like everybody was working way, way harder than they really should have on that vessel.
Now let's get to the food. Okay, what did we think of the food in the dining room, in the buffet, and in the specialty dinings? We did take advantage of some of their packages, as Norwegian has very good specialty dining packages, and we pre-booked them so they were quite economical. So we took advantage of all three areas, and here's what we thought.
So let's start off talking about the food with the buffet. I personally found the buffet on this ship to be about average. They didn't have a lot of the little food stations where you could go and have something made for you, which you do see on some of the larger ships.
Yeah.
It really was essentially a straight line buffet. You kind of started at one end and worked your way right the way to the other. Whether you were on one side of the ship or the other side of the ship, the food was exactly the same. So it didn't really matter which one of the buffet lines you took, you got essentially the same food. I found the quality of the food to be quite good on this ship. Most of the things that I had I did really enjoy, which sometimes I haven't had that experience in buffets on other ships.
Now, something we did notice in the buffet area that is a disappointment for Jason is they do not particularly host an afternoon tea. Although that being said, they do have tea and coffee available, as well as they did have on this particular ship, they had scones with
whipped cream. Yeah, it wasn't actually like a double cream like you'll see on a lot of the other ships in true English tea style, so there wasn't the clotted cream. It was actually just a whipped cream, which doesn't quite fit the bill for someone who loves tea. It didn't feel as rich. It didn't kind of give it the flavor.
It wasn't real whipped cream.
No, it wasn't.
It was like a Cool Whip.
It wasn't spectacular. And then the jam was just kind of served in a big bowl and you kind of put some on the side of your plate. So it didn't feel like an actual tea, which for me was a little disappointing.
They did try. They had sometimes some sandwiches and some biscuits. We wouldn't say this was an excellent tea experience. So if you're a person who's sailed on maybe Princess or Cunard or Holland America and you've enjoyed the afternoon tea, this might not be for you. Okay, dining room. On this particular vessel, again, Norwegian Dawn, we found was pretty good. We liked the space of the dining room. We found the service was good.
We liked one of the spaces.
Oh, yeah.
So there are 2 dining rooms on this ship. You've got either the Venetian, which is their larger dining room, or you've got Aqua, which is a smaller version. I will say that the Venetian was the nicer by far of the 2 rooms. It had a lot more open air feel. The ceilings were higher. It had a lot more windows for a lot more natural light. The windows were floor to ceiling, which also adds a nice level to it. Aqua felt a lot darker, a lot less appealing to me, for lack of a better word.
It felt a little more like a basement.
It did.
Like a use of space to get more people through, but it didn't feel as elegant of a dining service. And you did feel a little bit closer to everyone, like it was a bit louder because the ceiling's lower, and it just felt sort of like a loud basement, a party in someone's basement.
Or maybe a banquet room in a hotel. So it kind of gave you that sort of a feel. But in terms of the food, you get the same menu whether you're in Aqua or whether you're in Venetian.
Yeah.
So if you have the option, and you always do, go to the Venetian, you'll get a much better experience. Now, in terms of the food itself, what was your thoughts, Roma?
The food was adequate. We didn't have a lot of problems with the food. Several times we enjoyed the food. I would say there's not a lot of finish. Most of the time it might be a very simple, there might be like a meat and a carb and maybe a vegetable, but it's not going to have all the dripping sauces and marinades and flavorful everything. That's not really the specialty that we find on Norwegian. So if you're used to dining at, say, like a Holland America, and you're getting all these nice, extra things on your plate, you're not going to find that on Norwegian. But that being said, it was still very adequate.
Yeah, portion sizes were great. Pretty much everything came out hot, came out fresh. I asked for steamed vegetables with most of my meals, and they didn't give a lot of selection. It was basically kind of a carrot and a broccoli and maybe a couple of green beans. But that being said, they did it, which was great. But I will say, agreeing with Roma, it does lack the panache that you might get in the dining rooms on some of the other lines.
Now, Jason wants to talk about our rooms. Now, again, keep in mind, this is an older ship, so we are noticing a difference in several areas. Some were really actually quite good.
Well, they were actually. Now, we actually booked an inside cabin on this cruise. Once again, we're just trying to be budget friendly. We didn't really feel like being in Northern Europe that we wanted to have a balcony. We didn't think we would actually get any use out of it.
It's pretty cold.
One thing I will say, the room on this ship, it did feel decor-wise a bit older than when we went on the Encore. The decor I thought was nicer on the Encore. This particular...
More modern.
It was more modern, yeah. This one had a lot of, I guess, a kind of a cherry wood maybe. Kind of that orangey, reddy kind of colored wood everywhere. Size-wise, it was about the same as what we got on the Encore.
Yeah.
The nice things about this room, number one, storage.
Yeah.
There was a lot, or it felt like there was a lot of storage. There's lots of drawers, lots of shelving, good area to hang your clothes. So it worked out really well in that regard. I really like that.
Yeah, they did have a lot of storage. We were able to store everything in our storage, and both of our suitcases fit under the bed. So we didn't have any issues with storage.
Yeah, and really the pièce de résistance for this room for me was the bathroom. You may have heard me complain a little bit about bathrooms that have the curtain that kind of sticks to you while you're trying to have your shower. I do prefer the glass door. Now this bathroom actually has a sliding glass door, which is fantastic because of
and
course...
it's a long shower. Like
is,
it's not a
yeah.
square. It's quite long.
It is. It's a little thin, but it is a long shower. Easy to get in and out of. The water pressure was absolutely amazing. I've never experienced the like on another cruise ship.
He actually had to turn the water pressure down.
I actually turned the pressure down, yes, because it was kind of half tearing the skin off. But yes, the bathroom is great for that. Good size shower, good storage space. Very, very well done. I don't know if it's because it's an older ship and they, used a bit more space for the bathroom than they would on another ship, but I loved it. This has been a great room for us.
So we just wanted to make sure you knew about that because, again, you're thinking maybe an older ship, maybe it's not up to par with some of the newer ships, and yet we found the rooms, even though it was an inside cabin, it was a really great room for us.
And one other note on that, don't hesitate to book an inside cabin. A lot of people are very particular. They want to have either a balcony or they want to have at least a window that looks to the outside. I don't know that you necessarily have to have that it's life or death. Try it on a shorter cruise, maybe the first time, to make sure that you're okay with it. Don't be like us and jump in on a 21-day cruise and try it.
See if you like it.
It would have been terrible if we hated it, but it is great in that it's a very dark room, so if you have a hard time sleeping at night and because of too much light, it takes care of that issue. It's quiet, and it kind of feels like a little cocoon, so don't ever hesitate to try it. If you hate it, well, don't ever book it again.
So one of the areas that this particular ship was different than some of its counterparts was it didn't have an observation lounge. Again, this is an older ship and a bit of a smaller ship. So it didn't have the observation lounge, which a lot of people use for sort of their reading area, their quiet area, the area where they go and relax. Maybe they have a little bit of a nap or a light snack. So it didn't have that built in, and it also didn't really have any natural quiet spaces. So to be honest, filming this was quite tricky because we're still on the ship, and we lucked out that this evening we got to the library and there was no one here.
But usually most days when we tried to come to the library, there would be 6 or 8 or 10 people in the library, so it wasn't really a quiet spot. I mean, it was quieter than being in one of the lounges, but still, you can't really find those little nooks and crannies where when you don't want to be around 50 other people or listen to music that's coming from wherever they're bringing in music. It's really hard to find that on this ship. There aren't really too many spaces for it.
Now, for those of you who love a good hot tub and a great pool on this ship, let's talk about what did Norwegian Dawn have to offer in the way of pools.
So once again, older ship and also a smaller ship. This one is not really built for families per se. There are no water slides that, circle around the ship. There's no zip lines. There's none of that stuff. This is more of a basic ship. It does have a small area back at the back of the ship where if you've got essentially toddlers, there's a small kind of a water park for them, but teenagers wouldn't be happy with it. The slides are really next to nothing. In terms of pools, this one did only come with one pool just in the middle of deck 13, and there was a hot tub built on each of the 4 corners. So you have 4 hot tubs and a pool. It is not a covered pool. There is not an option for it to be a covered pool. So I will tell you, going in September on a northern cruise in Europe, you will not likely get in the pool.
So how this is different with only one pool is that it's not covered, so you're not going to be able to use it maybe on some of the Alaska cruises or Northern European cruises, especially if you're cruising out of season, which we are doing. And the other thing is because they only have one pool, is they're not going to have an adults-only pool.
You're going to have families with their kids. You're going to have, grandpa and grandma. Everybody's utilizing the same pool.
And that pool area is going to be a main focal area. So if there is going to be a band or a game or any live activities, they're going to be at the big pool. So there isn't like that typical maybe covered pool or quiet pool that you're going to see on some of the other lines. So keep that in mind.
One feature that I did find quite interesting on this particular cruise was they didn't just have the chairs around the pool. They basically had like a stadium seating that went up on one of the sides of the pools so that you could sit on one of, I don't think there was 4 or 5 different terrace levels. So you could actually sit up there, have a nice little view overlooking the ocean and the pool area, and still feel like you weren't jammed in amongst 200 other people sitting around the pool.
So as far as the pools go, we would recommend this particular ship in the pools department on a hot, maybe Caribbean cruise, but it might not be your best choice for using the pools, like we say, in Alaska or Northern Europe. Last video with the Norwegian Encore, I talked extensively about the thermal spa. Norwegian does a great job of their thermal spas, and so we wanted to make sure we checked it out, and did we use it, did we like it? So here's our report on the thermal spa on Norwegian Dawn. It was a bit surprising. They had a lot of the same features, as in they had, you know, the warm pools, and they had salt pools, and they had steam rooms. They had those things, but in a very peculiar fashion compared to the Encore that we had been on for many days. They had broken it all up and segregated it into male and female, which if you are a solo traveler or maybe just going with a girlfriend and you think that's, you know, more comfortable for you, then maybe that's a win for you. But if you are coming with a partner, such as ourselves, we would have had to spend the majority of our time in the thermal pools separate. So I could only girl on the girl's side and he could only girl on the guy's side, which is maybe not the romantic feel that you're thinking of in a thermal pool. So keep that in mind. They're very separated. Girls on one part, guys on the other. You have your own steam rooms, your own restrooms, like obviously your own restrooms, your own, what are those? Like your own quiet rooms. It's very separated. So this would be great for a solo traveler. This would be great for, you know, a female getaway, something like that. But it might not be great for a romantic thermal time. So we ended up not taking advantage because we found the space was really broken up and awkward for a couple. And also, as far as the loungers go, on the Encore, they had so many lounge chairs. So even if you didn't want to go in the pool at that time, you could come down and sit on a lounge chair and read your book and just feel cozy and nice. Whereas here, they had very limited lounge chairs, and their quiet room just had regular chairs. It was a really awkward sort of a space, so you're not going to find that same quiet zone that you might be thinking of on some of the other ships. Overall, I was a little bit disappointed, and I didn't bother to get the full cruise package of the thermal spa while I was here.
Another thing to note is the amenities on this ship in terms of the thermal spa didn't measure up to what we found on the Encore. So on the Encore, they had a lot of different places that you could go in terms of the different thermal options. So you had the ice room, you had the, what was the room with the kind of orangey color?
Oh yeah, you had like the crystal, the salt crystals where you could sit and relax and have all the toxins drawn out of you. So they did not have the full spectrum of what they had on the other ship. Keep that in mind. It's a smaller ship. They're not going to have everything. So was it worth it? Not for us this particular time.
One of the nice things I will say about the Norwegian Dawn as compared to our previous experiences on Norwegian is it felt a lot more relaxed in terms of the push by Norwegian to get you to purchase more experiences.
Now this is something Jason had complained quite bitterly about on the last Norwegian Encore that we were on, is he felt that there were sales at every corner and always feeling pressured to buy more and spend more. And we have heard that from other cruisers. They feel that they're always being nickel and dimed for everything. And that was a little bit different on this ship.
It was. On the previous ship, I would say every day we came back to our cabin and there would be 4 or 5 different pieces of paper in our room for, you know, booking future cruises, for
art gallery spa.
Sales, spa treatments. Like every day there was more and more literature given to us, which in the day of trying to use less and less paper just didn't seem quite fitting. On this particular cruise, we have not had much of that. Granted, on day one, we got into our room and there was a flashing light on our phone already offering us to come down and book another cruise. That being said, we haven't been inundated with all of the papers and all of the people standing in the corridors trying to get you to upgrade your drink package or come down to the spa for different treatments, where we found that a lot more on the previous ship.
Yeah, so this had a much more relaxed feel, like Jason mentioned, and it was just kind of easier to breathe. You kind of felt like, okay, I've paid my fee, everything's included. If you want to upgrade to something, you could, but you didn't feel that same pressure that we felt on the Encore. So we've told you all about the Norwegian Dawn. This ship is a little bit older and a little bit smaller. Does that make it worse, or does that make it better?
Personally, I think this has been a much better experience than we had on the Encore. If we had had this experience first, I think I would have had a lot more good things to say about Norwegian. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the things we talked about in our previous video are still true. This ship is built for a certain type of clientele. It's going to be, a person who loves Norwegian is pretty much guaranteed to almost love every one of their cruise ships.
Yes, if you love Norwegian, generally it's because you love the freestyle dining. So you don't have to come at any given time. You can show up whenever you like, and you're going to dine at your own table.
And if you are a person who doesn't want the formality that you get on a lot of other ships, you don't want to have to bring a couple of suits and ties and dress shirts and all the dress shoes and everything else that go along with the formal dinners, this ship is still going to be for you, because they do not have any of that on this ship either.
And if you're somebody who likes to relax and kick back and enjoy a few drinks while you're on your holiday, we have found that Norwegian has the best all-inclusive drink packages at sea. And so this really is that kind of a ship where you're going to be able to enjoy everything's included, just relax and have a great vacation. If this has been helpful, then please like and subscribe.
And please don't hesitate to leave a comment. Let us know if you've done the Northern European cruise before. If so, what was your favorite port? What did you enjoy the most about this ship?